Welcome. So my name is Ross Hersemann. I'm the chair of IGDA Chicago, and we are the rest of the board of IGDA Chicago. Tell everybody who you are and what you do, friends.
I'm Sam Bond. I am a medical illustrator and game developer, so I do freelance indie game dev, and I also teach Unity development and medical game development at University of Illinois, Chicago.
My name's Ryan Sizemore, and other than being on the board, I am a 3D environment artist, generalist as well. I mainly work on VR projects, and yeah, that's me.
Very cool. So in addition to being the chair of IGDA Chicago, I also teach a course in video game law over at DePaul, and I have a video game law practice as well called Loading Law. So I help independent game developers and small to mid-sized studios set up their studios, handle all their IP registrations, their business dev, all of that fun stuff. And between the three of us, we have been to GDC several times. I think this year will be my 5th year going. So I feel like we've all got a pretty good handle on a couple different aspects of what GDC meant for us and what it means to each other and groups we've worked with and business networking. So we're here to give you a little bit of our experience, tell you what we've experienced, what you're about to see, and answer any questions that you might have. So getting started, I'm a big fan of splash pages. One of the first things that some of you might be interested in is actually has less to do with GDC than about getting to GDC, and that's called Train Jam. Train Jam is a 3-day-long game jam on an Amtrak train that goes from Chicago all the way to San Francisco. It's organized by Adriel Wallach and Rami, and it's over 300 different people, all coding, arting, making games together the entire way to GDC. It's a very cool networking event, so I would highly recommend it. I did it last year for the first time, and I'm doing it again this year. From a social aspect, you're meeting a ton of new people from many different cities, many different countries, other IGDA chapters, and you're cranking out games in a really cool, kind of weird environment. You're meeting lots of people you wouldn't meet normally. There's all different languages, all different skill sets on the train. And that's before you even get there. So before that leaves, I have to remember my dates, that leaves Wednesday the 14th, I think. And the week leading up to that, a local pop-up festival called Bit Bash usually has a kickoff for Train Jam in GDC. So a bunch of people in the community come and hang out, play games, and kind of network with each other about Train Jam that way. I've got 3 other things here, and we're all going to kind of dive into them individually. One of them is a picture of just the GDC show floor. There's a huge escalator that takes you down into Moscone West, and that's where the entire show floor is. It's where they have all of the booths. It's where they have all of the major demonstrations and demos, separate from the panel space, and that's kind of where all the action at GDC actually happens. There's a stack of business cards, because I swear business cards is 50% of the GDC experience for me. It's meeting people, hearing their elevator pitches, collecting all the business cards for all the different skill sets of people you want to meet. And then, of course, parties. That I would say is probably 50% of GDC time is spent at after parties, networking groups, meetups, random excursions into the city. And that's where you get a lot of kind of the one-on-one personal time with people that actually leads to meaningful business connections after the fact, more than things. But start us off there, folks. Let's kind of take it one at a time. Booth stuff. Like, what are some things that we can expect from the actual show floor that was cool, that was different, that was scary?
Sensory overload, for sure. Mm-hmm. So you walk in there, especially if you've never been before, people are talking at you, and at the same time, you feel like everyone is ignoring you. And so it's this kind of sensation of, oh gosh, do I want to talk to everyone? Do I want to talk to anyone here? What exactly am I trying to get out of this experience? So you can kind of take 2 paths. Some people go into the expo floor, I think, with this very open, like, I don't know what to expect, and that's okay. I have a notebook with me to take notes. If I meet anybody, I've got business cards, and you just got to be open-minded. The other path is researching what's going to be there ahead of time, who's been there last year, what the rumors are for what might be there, and gunning for those specific things, if that makes sense. And all of it kind of depends on what you're at GDC for, what kind of experience you want to customize for yourself. It's such a huge experience that you really kind of get to tailor it to what you want to get out of it.
Definitely. It's kind of a hard thing to sum up, especially like in a short talk, because there's so many different avenues of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and once you get into the center, it's surprising how massive it is. There's just booths upon booths and it's a little intimidating to navigate And I definitely recommend going the prepared route, just because, you're going to get much more out of it if you come in knowing who you want to talk with and having whatever resume or portfolio pieces tailored towards those people.
Definitely. It's very overwhelming, and it's a huge floor. Like, you should never, this is a blanket statement for all things GDC, but you shouldn't expect to see everything or do everything at GDC. It's a sprawling giant mess of things. So I definitely favor the prepared route as well, making a short list of things you want to see and do and kind of catering your experience to that. When it comes to the show floor, a place that I always kind of send people is either to the Indiecade, Indie Games Foundation, or some of the different colleges that are there. Pick a studio that you're familiar with or a game that you're a fan of and go and seek that out first. And that's always kind of a good entry point for everything else, because every studio you've ever heard of and haven't heard of has a booth there. They all want to talk to you. There's swag at every one of them. And it's very easy to get overwhelmed with all of that. So you also only have 2 days to cover all of it, because it starts Wednesday, right? The show
2.5.
opening.
Yeah, 2.5. So it's like Wednesday, Thursday, first half of Friday, I think, right? Or am
Right.
I thinking?
No, you're right. You're right,
Wednesday?
because the VRAR is Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
And the career day is only Friday.
That is only Friday. And Friday is also a bit of a wash because everyone's exhausted at the end of GDC. So even though you're at the floor and even though the booths are open, people are packing up and are getting ready to leave by 2 o'clock on Friday, I think.
Yeah.
The floor's open till 5. People are done at 2. So if you're going, don't wait till Friday to go and make that contact, because chances are everybody's burnt out by Friday. You want to try and get there a little bit sooner. Let's see. Do's and don'ts of business cards.
Oh, always have a pen on you. Always, the second you're done talking to them, not while they're in front of you, but the second they walk away and you've got a second to yourself, write down something meaningful that you guys talked about, whatever you made the connection about. I swear, once you leave, you'll think when you're in the conversation with that person that you had such a meaningful connection, and you'll remember them 2 days later when you're sending follow-up emails. You will not remember what you talked about. You will not remember what that person looks like, because you just met 80 people. So write down the meaningful thing that you talked about. Try to give yourself some notes, just brief notes, so that you can remember who they are later on, so that when you are sending follow-up emails, you can give sort of a meaningful connection to that, if that makes sense. It's absolutely my biggest recommendation with business cards.
Definitely. Anything you can do to jog your memory early on and record that is going to make your life a lot easier later. Something as simple as, like Sam said, carrying a pen with you and writing that information on the back of the card as soon as you walk away. Again, not in front of them, not cool. The latest you could possibly do it is when you get home that night. You can experiment with all kinds of different things. Some friends of mine have used different color sticky notes that they put on the back of business cards to say what day they got the card from or what person they talk to kind of narrow it down, because you also might meet some of these people several times and getting several different cards from different businesses. A lot of people wear different hats, so you might get their business card and then you might get their personal page, and those are two different things, and you need to know where to contact them for what purpose. Order them early. A couple services you can use are Vistaprint, which is kind of the go-to for everyone. Moo is also a favorite for business cards. They're a little bit pricier, but the quality shows. And when you're trying to get your card to stand out amongst the stack that everyone else has collected at the end of GDC, they can make a difference. It's the difference between someone remembering who you are because they commented that your card was cool and you falling into the white noise of everything else they saw that week. So have cards, have lots of them, give them out freely. But control your personal information as well. Don't be too free with your cards. Some people say don't put a phone number on a card. That is a pro-con kind of thing. Something that I'll do is I have a Google Voice number that I use on convention cards that I hand out that forwards to a personal phone number. So I'm not giving out my personal cell phone to everyone I might meet at a conference. I might not want them to have my phone number a year from now. So something like that is an extra level of security. I highly recommend Google Voice in general. It's good for most things. Ryan, what are your thoughts on business cards?
Yeah, don't make the mistake I did my first GEC and forget them and have to print them the day before for an exorbitant amount of money.
I've been there. I've done it. It happens.
And definitely make sure you have enough white space on your card. I also made the mistake of putting a cool graphic I made on the back to kind of show off, and then no one could write down my information, and they all told me it was useless. So, so avoid that.
Yeah, carry a functional pen with you at all times. Like it's, I can't believe this is actually advice I'm giving, but I've just seen it go so badly for so many people for so many years in a row now. Like, have a Bic that writes on anything. You know, your gel pens, your ink pens, your Mont Blancs, they might not work on some kind of paper. So make sure you even bring a Sharpie, something that works.
And a Tide-to-Go pen, speaking of pens, it's actually an amazing icebreaker. There's so much coffee at GDC. I'm not kidding you. I met like 16 people because I saw them spill coffee on themselves and said, oh no, here's a Tide-to-Go pen. And they got it out. New introduction, great icebreaker without having to worry about not necessarily being super extroverted or being really exhausted at the time.
See, now I want to dress like a walking fix-it kit. Like I just have a Tide pen, Kleenex, spare paper, anything that people need. That'll be my icebreaker for people. That could work. All right. Now, one of the most important things that we always get into that I want to talk about is the GDC parties, do's and don'ts of GDC parties. There are good ones, there are less good ones, there are ones that are safe, there are ones that are not safe. A resource that I recommend is something on Facebook called the Fellowship of Gdc Parties. It's a lot of people who get together and kind of list all of the events that they've been to, which ones they like, which ones they didn't like, which organizers are shady, which ones aren't. By shady, I don't mean that they're predatory. I just mean some corporate functions might have a vibe that you're not familiar with. You might get sensory overload because there's a lot of strobe lights and loud music. Some of them are a little bit more relaxed. Some have a more social kind of vibe to them. Some of them are more professional geared. So that's one of the interesting contrasts at GDC is you're getting a combination of people who are there for business purposes and they're kind of building their careers, and then there's also a fun party social aspect to things. So walking the line between the two of those can get a little bit complicated. Let's see. Hi, computer. Let's see. So one party that I recommend, it's less of a party than a networking event. It's called the GDC Kickoff Dinner. It happens the Sunday before GDC. And all of the events, for the most part, are organized through Eventbrite. So you can find most of them on there. If you literally just search, Game Developers Conference San Francisco and then limit your search to that week, you're going to start finding a lot of events. Definitely keep your eye open for free events. Something that I do to kind of make my life easier is I'll register for all the free events and keep them in my Eventbrite in my phone, and I'll absolutely forget about it until I'm at GDC and I'm like, oh, I have 2 hours and I don't know what I'm doing right now, what's available? And then you can look at your phone and be like, oh, there's a party 2 blocks from me, it's over there, it has free food. That's always convenient. So the GDC Kickoff Dinner, the first Sunday that I mentioned, is fun because it's totally random. It's buffet style, and they drop you at a table with 8 other people that you've never met from cities that you don't know, and you have to adult with them and talk about what you do and what you're there to learn and what you're there to find out. So I always recommend that one. One of the more high-profile ones now is That Party. Have you guys done That Party on Wednesday?
I haven't done it, but I've heard a lot.
There's wonderful things and bad things about That Party. It needs a better name, because that's literally what it's called, is That Party. So you'll see a lot of people there. It's very high on the sensory overload spectrum, so lots of loud music, lots of strobe lights, lots of ravey dancey kind of stuff. But a lot of people do end up there, so that's usually one that people end up at. But that's actually a really good segue. Let's see, success stories or horror stories from GDC parties? From you two, what was something that worked well at a party networking event, and what was something that didn't work so well?
In terms of, this is not something that I have ever done, but it's something that I've seen a number of times of people, often just young students who, it's the sensory overload thing, it's meeting all these people, and they end up getting sloppy. They ended up getting carried away because some of these parties have open bar, or they get a number of drink tickets, or people are on their way out and giving out tickets and everything, and they don't necessarily think about the impression that they might be making if they let themselves get a little carried away. So just be a little bit more cautious, be a little bit more reserved with that kind of thing, because the last thing you want to do is make a bad impression because you're trying to have a little too much fun.
Definitely. And it's the kind of thing where, since you're going to be traveling to California from Chicago, this is, in many ways, the only first impression you're going to get to make on a lot of these people. You'll be meeting them for the first time, and they might not see you until the next GDC. So whatever impression you're making on them that week is going to stay with them for an entire year. Make sure it's a good one. Don't be sloppy. Don't be messy.
Also, try not to read out your resume to them in a party vibe. Read the room. It's a sense of talking to someone, don't necessarily force your way into talking about what your career aspirations are. Everyone there is often nervous about what they're doing and what they're talking about, and they really want to try to get a leg up on things, but the best thing you can do is ask them about themselves first, whoever you're talking to, and then just sort of go from there and see if there's a smooth segue into talking about your hopes and dreams rather than cramming your verbal business card down their throats.
Definitely. Being able to read that room and know when it's time to talk business and when it's time to just kind of hang out is one of the trickier things about GDC, because there is so much bleed.
Yeah.
That's always hard. I'm still trying to find a good solution for that myself, actually, because it changes.
Yeah.
Ryan, horror stories, success stories.
I didn't have many horror stories. I didn't get to party that hard. I went with a broken leg, but yeah. But I would recommend. I've been more successful at these events by just trying not to talk with everyone in the room. Focus on a few people. Just really get to know them. You're going to make better connections. You're going to stand out more than just talking and fading away in their memory throughout the party. So that's my advice there.
You want to make an impression, but you want it to be a good one. And I've seen some people do some interesting things. It's very memorable, but I don't always know if it was practical for them. So, for example, I remember one year at the GDC pre-kickoff dinners, a guy brought a selfie stick with a very nice camera on it. And he went up to every table at the dinner and offered to take a photo of everyone there for them to remember the event. And then they all said, well, how do we get the photo from you? He's like, oh, give me your business cards and I'll, send you the photo afterwards. So in about 10 minutes, he went to 50 tables and got every business card from every person there, and everyone knew him as the selfie stick guy from the first party. So for the entire week, everybody could see him with his selfie stick, and they're like, you're that guy with the selfie stick. But then the thing is, that was 2 years ago, and that's all I remember about him. I don't remember his name. I don't remember if he was a coder, if he was an artist, if he did music. I don't know if he did anything with games really, but he had a selfie stick. So make sure the thing that people remember about you is actually relevant to why you're at GDC. If you're trying to find a job, if you're trying to do a skill, introduce yourself by saying, hi, I'm Ross, I'm a lawyer, and I'm here to meet potential clients. I'm here to tell you about IGDA Chicago. I'm here to go to Alcatraz on Tuesday because I heard it's really cool and I want to go see where Al Capone was. Have some random kind of tidbit trivia that you can kind of bust out with people. That's always fun.
Yeah, I kind of had that happen to me. People recognize me as the cane guy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, it happens.
Yeah, it happens. But
it happens. You can use it to your advantage, though.
Yeah, I met someone at a studio who was also walking around in a cane and a broken leg, and got to connect with him that way. So
You were buddies.
Yeah,
I like it. Every little bit helps. And that is actually a good segue for how we can help you. So we are IGDA, and I want to talk a little bit about what IGDA does at GDC and how it could be a good kind of entry point for you when you're there. One of the first things that we do is we have a booth at GDC, and we have a volunteer program. So you can come and volunteer with us at GDC, work at our booth, and then get a expo badge for your trouble. And one of the reasons that I've always enjoyed doing it the last couple of years is that it's a very easy way to meet people without having to put forth any kind of effort. Working at the booth is between 4 and 6 hours for the entire week compared to the CA program. So the Conference Associates program is run by GDC, and it's a really cool program to get you a full access badge for everything at GDC, including the vault. But the trade-off for all of those extra perks is they do run you a little bit ragged. You're working a lot more hours, and you're going to be working a lot harder when you are doing that. IGDA is a little bit more lax with that. So we have you work a little less hours, we give you a lesser badge. But it's a really good entry point for meeting other people from other IGDA chapters, hanging out at the booth, joking around, meeting other people who come by to renew their memberships. I always think it's really fun. Ryan, you did volunteering with IGDA.
No, this will be my first year.
This will be your first year?
Yep.
All right. What questions do you have for what volunteering at IGDA is like? You're my guinea pig. Well,
how active is the booth?
It depends what day it is. It's a booth on the main show floor. So most of the folks who come by are asking questions about what is IGDA? What can it do for me in this city? I live in this city or this country. Do we have a chapter there? What do we do? How can IGDA help me find a job? Or develop my craft or something like that. So there's always a steady line of people asking those kinds of questions. We'll also have a lot of people using our booth space as a meeting place. So a lot of chairs and leadership from other chapters will kind of use it as their meeting spot. They'll come by and have their coffee meetings there and talk about what they're doing. So it's a really easy way to meet some people in other cities that you might not know. If you kind of stalk the IGDA booth, interesting people come by occasionally. So that's always kind of fun. So the volunteer program is fantastic. I love that. And something else that I want us to talk about is the Foundation and Scholars Program. And Sam, you were one of our scholars.
Yes. Well, I wasn't a scholar. I was one of the, it was called the Women in Games Ambassador Program. It is now called the Viscosity Program, I believe.
Right.
Yes. And it is fantastic. I can tell you that there is a little bit of overlap between those two programs. Some of the things that they have in common is a really, a very close mentorship. Not only with the people that are running those programs, so the IGDA volunteers that are helping to manage all of the people involved, but they also bring in guest speakers every morning. They give you a lot of personal advice, not only for the week of GDC, but also for the rest of your career, and sort of helping you to navigate some of the difficult questions that you might be starting to find in the later years of your academic career. So it's an unbelievable program. All of the foundation's programs are absolutely fantastic, and I would highly recommend applying next year if you didn't get to apply this year, because think about it this way: if you apply, the worst they can say is no. I actually learned from GDC that some of the best advice that I heard there that I needed to pass down to my students was, for any opportunity, the worst they can say is no. So you might as well give it a chance, because it's a really fantastic program.
I agree. I've been a fan of it ever since they implemented it a couple years ago. And it's a great way to, like you said, meet so many different people, to help you with some of the expenses of GDC, because it's a very expensive thing. And just kind of taking care of that networking for you, giving you a schedule and a calendar of like, here's all the events that are happening and here's places for you to be, and just God bless that program. I love it. It makes things so easy.
It pre-structures things. It pre-structures the conference for you in a way that's not so intimidating, you know?
Definitely. And in addition to that, another thing that IGDA does is called our special interest groups. So we have a lot of meetings every year at GDC of, well, special interest groups. And what those mean is that there's these small committees that work within IGDA that discuss a variety of different topics covering all kinds of things in the game industry. So everything from accessibility and accessibility in games, or promoting diversity within games, or the legal business SIG, which talks about legal and business issues, which I work with. And we have dozens of them. We have them for writing, we have them for audio, we have them for code, we have them for tons of different things. And it's a great opportunity to meet other people who are working in that particular concentration and find out what they're doing, and also contribute to it, because most of those SIGs have their own white papers that they write every year. If you've never heard of one or never written one, a white paper is basically an opinion essay that a group of people will all contribute on. So they might submit a comment, a paragraph, a footnote, or a whole chapter of their opinion and research in a particular field. And getting your name attached to one of those is something fantastic for your resume, and a great icebreaker for meeting other people. Being able to say, like, hey, I contributed to the white paper on such and such at GDC, means it's going in front of thousands of eyes, and all of a sudden you're an expert. And everyone wants to know what you're thinking, and that is really helpful. It's a great way to just expand your network and also get a cool line on your resume for it. So definitely check out the SIGs. Those require IGDA membership, but we offer so many discounts during GDC that it is totally worth your time. I guarantee it. And the other two things, I can go to my next slide. Caw. These are the IGDA save the dates for you. So these are some of my favorite events at GDC, no kidding. I would say that even if I wasn't the chair of IGDA, but this is why I'm involved in IGDA, is because of these particular events. These are things I got involved with early that were really, really fun. The annual networking event is for anyone at GDC. It doesn't have to be an IGDA member, and it's at the Children's Museum across the street from Moscone West. Super big event. There's amazing art, there's cool displays, and there are drink tickets involved. It's one of the few events that actually has free drinks, which is super groovy. And it's got one of the best balances of business and fun vibes that I've encountered. A lot of the parties tend to be very hardcore parties, and a lot of the networking events are very stratified, businessy kinds of things. And this one balances both of them very, very well. I've been a big fan. I think you and I really connected the most at GDC of all places, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's consistently been my favorite event. I've made some of my absolute best connections, my GDC besties, at that specific event. So it's just fantastic. Plus, there's a whole wall that's just Legos. It's really cool.
That's true. There's a carousel outside. There's a photo booth. There's lots of random things that are fun. Also, there's food. Always seek out the free food at anything GDC related. California is very expensive. An omelet is $20. I'm not kidding.
And there's there's so much going on. People have a tendency to forget to eat and drink water, and it's so important. Oh, it's so important. It's crazy
Invest
how
in a good
important
water
it is.
bottle. Like, this is just good life advice, but for GDC especially, like, you're going to be on your feet. You're going to be walking uphill. There's hills in San Francisco. I don't know if you know that. We don't have them here, but you're going to be walking uphill a lot of the time. So bring good shoes, bring water. Have
steep hills too.
Phone batteries as well, external batteries, because your phone will die. So you're going to need your GPS to know how to get home at the end of the day. Let's see, the mentor cafes. Well, there's the foundation supporter luncheon. So Sam talked a bit about what the foundation is, but the supporter luncheon is exactly what it sounds like. It's one of those meetups for everyone involved in the program. So that's a really cool room to be in. Lots of cool ideas there. The mentor cafe is another mentor program that IGDA has, which I believe submissions are still open. I think you can still get involved in the mentor program for the mentor cafes. It's exactly what it sounds like. You get to go and have coffee with some mentor, some cool person. You can go on IGDA.org and fill out an application basically saying what you're interested in, what you want to learn, what kind of people you'd like to meet. And we match you up with someone of that skill set who's going to be there, who's eager to talk to young people. And that could be any kind of things. So if you're a law student and you want to meet a lawyer who works in video games, you could get linked up with me. If you want to learn about what it's like to be a transgender person in the game industry in San Francisco trying to get a job at a major studio that has political gaffes, there will be a transgender person there ready to talk to you about that whole experience. Everything from the just like social aspects of what it is to work in the industry to the business ones and everything in between. So the mentor cafes are super cool. And the Midwest Mingle is something that IGDA Chicago actually does. So it changes every year, but we always partner with a couple other IGDA chapters here in the Midwest and have a space where all the Midwestern folks can kind of get together and hang out. It sounds kind of funny that that's something that should exist, but GDC is very big about coasts. It's very much about like, there's the New York crowd and there's the California, Seattle crowd, and they kind of stick to themselves. Not too many people think about the Midwest as a center for video games, which I think it is.
Yeah.
So the Midwest Mingle is actually really fun. There's a really great contingent of game devs in Columbus and Cincinnati, Ohio that always meet with us and hang out. A lot of good folks from Milwaukee and our other chapters. So keep an eye out for that. You'll see some friendly faces. If nothing else, you might be on overload from meeting new people all the time. It might be nice just to see some people you know. So the Midwest Mingle is always good.
It's just a group of people being really nice to each other, which is just really funny and very, very fun. So it's just kind of a guaranteed fun, nice experience.
Agreed. We tend to be a little bit friendlier in the Midwest. A little less direct, I think. I know some people always get culture shock meeting folks from New York, and that's always kind of funny. But, Chris, can you give me a time check? How far along are we? 6:34. That's perfect. That's exactly where I wanted to be right now. So what I'd like to do, because that's the end of our slides, is I would really dig opening it up to your questions for us and seeing what we can speak to that you're interested in before we bring Josh in at 7 and have him give his like 20-year experience at GDC, like full speech. What are you curious about? What did we not cover? What should we cover in more detail?
So do you suggest, because I heard both ways, is like telling people you're looking for a job or not?
It depends how you do it. So I think you should definitely let people know that you're in the market for a job, but that shouldn't be your icebreaker. Like you shouldn't just walk up to someone and say like, hi, my name's Ross, I want a job. Some people do. I've seen it happen. It doesn't go well. But it's something that you can definitely work into conversation. So you can say, hi, I am a game developer. I'm particularly interested in 3D modeling and VFX. I have this experience. And they might say, what brings you to GDC? And you can say, oh, I'm that, and I'm looking for opportunities here, or I'm trying to connect with people who can teach me this because I'm using it in my job search. Kind of do the sly on the side, kind of, not so much a name drop, but it's kind of working in a conversation subtly. Everybody knows that's why everyone's at GDC. You're either connecting with your network that you've already established or you're trying to build a new one. So it's not unheard of. So definitely tell people you're looking, but try to do it in a way where it's not their responsibility to give you one. You're not asking them for a job. You're just saying, I'm looking for a job in general. Do you know anyone who is also looking for a job or might have an opportunity?
Something I've noticed too is it's somewhat the mirror effect sometimes. Definitely wait until you've at least had a decent connection with them, an icebreaker and everything. But like if I were to say, hi, my name is Sam, your reaction would be, hi, I'm so-and-so. So if you kind of want them to ask what you're there for, it's kind of a good idea to say something along the lines of, so what are you at GDC for? And then eventually they'll say, what about you? Good way to work that in.
That's true. That's how it goes.
I've heard good things about the roundtable discussions at GDC. I was wondering if any of you had experience.
Yeah, that's a big part of the SIGs too, is those kind of double as roundtables sometimes. So they're about everything. They're about so many different kinds of conversations. We didn't talk about panels very much, actually.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny, because that's a big part of what people like at GDC, and we totally skipped it. GDC is different to everybody. The roundtables are very, very valuable. I would think that they are probably the most valuable your first and second time to GDC. I've noticed a trend that people who have been at GDC for a long time tend to focus on the parties and meeting people they already know. People who are going to GDC for their first and second, and maybe even their third time, are focusing on panels because they're highly educational. They have lots of great information. They're a good place to sit, which after a week at GDC is actually very exciting. So the roundtables are fantastic for that. From my experience, the ones that I've been the most involved with have been like the legal business SIG. What we talked about last year was we were getting into loot boxes, unions, and more free speech concerns. So it was a room full of lawyers and game devs all talking about the business of games, the finances of games, free speech in games, and then throwing international perspectives at it, because it's not just the US. So we were talking about Germany at the time had just rolled back restrictions on Nazi propaganda in video games. So games like Wolfenstein were previously illegal in Germany, and at this point they just became legal. So we were talking about the market considerations of, wow, we can sell Wolfenstein in Germany now. What does that mean for our international marketing plan? Do you guys have any experience with the roundtables? I'm probably the only lawyery person in the whole room. So when it comes to like...
advertise, so I work for IGDA Anti-Censorship,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a roundtable this year, and this is like the first year after a while we actually have a full committee to planning this roundtable, so yeah.
That's awesome.
Check it out if you are here.
No, the anti-censorship, the anti-censorship SIG is super cool. I know you probably know some of the history about it better than I do, but I know that it was really, really big in the early 90s when people were talking about the ESRB and trying to figure out, are games violent? Do they make people violent? What do we do? How does it work?
Now we want to focus recently it's about gaming disorder and how the negative, it's not about censorship, but more like the social impact of video game and just fighting with those people who like try to get a video game a bad name. Definitely. A real hot topic the last couple of years, like she said, is does gaming constitute addiction for like in the traditional gambling definition of addiction? What does that mean for games? How do we market them? How do we keep people involved and happy and not addicted? It's a cool conversation. The roundtables are a great place to kind of tie in topics like that and kind of bounce ideas off each other. So do them. Do them. They're fun. I recommend them. Yeah.
What kind of advice can you give to a person like me that's totally brand new to the whole game development scene?
Oh, man. What's the iceberg for game development? We're a friendly bunch, generally, but we're kind of shy, I've noticed. Myself, I'm very outgoing, but I've noticed a lot of folks in the game space tend to be a little bit more introverted. So that's a good thing sometimes because it's kind of a slower, easier introduction into things. I would say if you're new to game dev and you're new to GDC At GDC, don't bite off more than you can chew. Kind of take it slow. Go and see a panel, and then go and see a roundtable, and then go to a lunch networking event. Take a nap. I recommend naps at GDC. People don't get this enough, but it's very important. And just kind of don't overburden yourself with things, because you'll burn out. Over the course of that week, you will absolutely burn out. So it's okay to skip stuff.
I think too, so being in serious games, and especially being in medical serious games, I'm kind of both a black sheep as a medical illustrator, because I'm in more of the video game side of things, and I'm kind of a black sheep in the games industry being more educational serious games. So I definitely get your perspective and like, wow, I don't know if I feel like I fit in here entirely. The kind of great thing about GDC is that everyone fits in. You just sort of have to be willing to be honest with people. Like if they ask like, oh, what are you doing here? You can be really, really transparent and say, I'm here, I'm relatively new, but I'm excited to learn things. And if you try to kind of lie your way into conversations, people can tell. Yeah, exactly. So the best thing to do is just be honest and open and ask for advice. That's part of the benefit of being there in the first place.
Any particular advice if you're coming to maybe look for a game publisher instead of a job?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yes. So a lot of the game publishers will have their own networking events, especially if you have a game in the pipeline. They're going to want to talk to you. There's a good chance they may have reached out to you already. But Eventbrite is a fantastic place to go and find those meetups, and then also directly. Now is actually the perfect time for you to start sending, if you haven't already, the kind of first preliminary contact emails. So if you have a game and you're interested in a publisher, my advice to clients all the time when they're looking for publishers is take a good hard look at your game, and then go on Steam, go on the App Store, look for other games like yours. Find something like what you're working on that's already been released, and find out who their publisher is, and see who's marketing their game and who's handling their biz dev and who's doing all of that. And then go to that person's website. So say you've got a game a lot like Omnibus and you really like Devolver Digital. You think they're super cool. You like their marketing. So you go to their website and you find their contact and say, I am so-and-so and I have a game in development and I will be at GDC. Is there anyone representing your publishing house, your studio, your company that will be at GDC that I can connect with? I have questions. I have a game. I have money. Whatever hook you can throw at them. Now is the perfect time because they're very open to those kinds of emails, and most of them have websites that are for that. Because if you're making a game and you're calling a publisher, you're basically saying, "Hi, I did your work for you. Just sell it for me and give me money." That'd be my thought. What do you guys think about publishers? Have you run into any at GDC?
I know they're there. I got to talk with Sony a lot when I was over there, but I don't have any personal knowledge of selling a game that's already made. So
they tend to be very friendly. Folks who are representing studios, who are representing, who are marketers, who are lawyers, who are in the business angle of games, are looking for clients. They're looking for people who have games. So they're going to be the outgoing ones. So they're going to find you. But yeah, that's my advice, is definitely just go through their websites and say that you're interested. Mm-hmm. Any other deep, hard questions for GDC? Yeah.
What made you guys want to go into the industry?
Ooh. I'm going to think about that for a second. We're going to start at this end of the table and work my way.
Just growing up, I've been playing games since I was 2, and when I learned I could actually make them, I went for it. And originally I wanted to be a programmer, and then high school I took a 3D art course, and that kind of just started it, and I went from there. And after some stumbling blocks, I eventually came back to it and really passionately drove for it. And once I set my sight for it, I got it. So kind of just have to keep going, keep building your skills. Yeah, that's how I did it, and that's why I wanted to go in. It's fun, it's challenging, and it's a fun industry. A lot of cool people working in it. So
for me, I suppose a lot of my career has been tripping and falling headfirst into very lucky and good experiences. Whether it's, finding scientific illustration by accident and then going to grad school sort of mostly on purpose, but not realizing what I was going to get out of it. Staying at UIC, doing the work that I've been doing. The biggest consistency in my life, though, has been games, whether it's video games, board games, card games. All of that stuff has been the biggest consistency. And so what I've always kind of done is dragged by the ankles games into whatever it is I'm working on. You know, that was what my undergrad was like, what my graduate school was like, and what I'm working on now in my research. A lot of it has just been figuring out ways to make games a part of my life and make the world of healthcare a better place by involving games, because it's one of the biggest passions that I've always kind of had. You know what I mean? I think most likely anyone who's in the field kind of recognizes and understands that feeling of just like, no, this is a big part of who I am and what I love, and I'm going to figure out a way to make everything else that I love at least shake hands with this part of my life. You know what I mean? So I suppose that's sort of my answer for that.
That's a perfect way to describe it. I love it. And my answer is very similar. So I started off as a writer and then found my way into law school and was very passionate about internet censorship and free speech in digital spaces because I felt the legal system wasn't really doing games justice in general. Lawyers and judges didn't seem to understand video games very well. So I kind of found a niche in being a attorney who knew about video games and loved games and wanted to work with them and understand them. And I found my way into IGDA because as I kept meeting more and more people in the game development space and understanding what they were doing, I just wanted to learn more. I always loved playing games, and then I wanted to start learning how to make games and market games and publish games and meet people who did all of those things. And it's been a couple years later, and now we're, promoting this kind of community here in Chicago. And I'm going on Train Jam in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be making a game with people all the way to California, and I hope I live because it's going to be a long ride. So I love doing it. I wouldn't be anywhere else. And GDC is a fun time. It's a stressful time, but it's super fun.
I really wish I had time for Train. I think I might, but my mom works. Well, yeah, of course, but practically every weekend she wants me to come home. She lives out in the suburbs in a much larger house than we had before, and she says she gets scared and lonely out there, and I don't blame her. But at the same time, you moved out. At the same time, she moved out there to find peace and quiet and avoid the crime in the city in Chicago. But you don't like it, you might as well move back.
Here she will. Did you have a question? Sure.
Oh,
you got it.
I don't know how many of you guys are going to Train Jam because I'm going. And
Hi, friend. We're going to hang out on Train Jam a lot.
okay, so I'm nervous because I have never taken train that long.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if you have any how to survive the Train Jam and
Oh, sure.
because we are not gonna have signal and limited electricity.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you about that. And we have time, so that's perfect. So, Ryan, is this your first Train Jam this year?
I didn't get in.
Oh, no, you didn't do Train Jam this year,
No.
but you're doing IGDA.
Yes.
Cool. So I'm doing Train Jam. So last year was my first year doing it, and it was definitely a trial by fire. I didn't know what to expect. I'd been on long Amtrak rides before, but not that long. So the longest one I had done before that was Chicago to DC, which was 15 hours. This is 53 hours. So it's 3 full days. And did you do just the plane seat, or did you do the car situation?
I did a plane seat.
Cool. So it's exactly what it sounds like. You get a chair to sit in for 3 days. It's a very comfortable chair, but it's still 3 days. So first, I highly recommend bringing a pillow for your neck and one for your butt, because you want to sit on something very comfortable the whole way there. So definitely do that. Bring a blanket with you, because sometimes it gets cold. People forget about that. One of the problems with Train Jam that will never be fixed, there's no showers on the train. So you're locked in a metal tube with 300 people for 3 days. Think of the last game jam you went to. There were windows. This is on a train. So it starts to smell a little interesting after 3 days. So it's a funny thing, but I recommend baby wipes or shower wipes of some kinds, just so that you don't feel gross the entire time. They have their own rules about snacks. Last year there was a peanut embargo, just no peanuts allowed. We had a couple people who were allergic to peanuts. This year as well, I believe it happens. So bring some healthy snacks. There's usually free soda pop on the train, but water is a good thing to have, so bring a good water bottle. From a technical aspect, do not expect internet. There will not be internet. Even though We'll be going through some small towns the whole way there. A lot of it is the Great Plains. So we're going through the middle of nowhere and there's no cell towers. So there's no internet. So any assets that you need, any programs you need to download, make sure you have them ahead of time. So if you're working in Unity or Unreal or anything like that, make sure it's on your laptop. Make sure you have all the assets downloaded that you need, tutorials that you might need. I recommend people downloading PDF tutorials for various things. You never know what you might need to learn on the fly when you're on Train Jam, so bring that with you. Something as simple as how to import sprite animations in a game maker saved some people on Train Jam last year, so bring something like that. What else? There's a Discord channel for Train Jam, so definitely hop in there and talk to people beforehand so that you can start building your dream team before you even get there. And additionally, I know another preliminary thing that can help you a lot with Train Jam is still related to meeting people before you get there, but there's going to be another itty bitty bash before Train Jam this year. And they're going to be doing it out at Emporium. So that's happening Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Train Jam leaves Wednesday. So going there those nights will help. And then also there's going to be a meetup at, what's it called? Replay, the other arcade bar. And that's, I think, the night before Bit Bash on Tuesday. Check Facebook. So they've got a Facebook group for the Emporium invite. And if you can't find it, I'll send it to you afterwards. So I'll make sure that you get it. But yeah, so I think, are we doing on time, Chris? Are we about 8 till? Perfect. Okay, so we're going to take a bit of a break here before 7, before our next panel. So that wraps this panel. So thank you